Good evening, morning, afternoon, night, whenever you find it most convenient to join us at the bonfire. And this time, it's a very happy occasion to be at the bonfire. We'll talk about why in a bit. I, as always, am Alan the Pole with the gold, joined by my lovely, jubbly co-hosts, DJ.
Tacos!
Yes, tacos is one of them. DJ and his family are getting tacos ready. We're also joined by our lovely, jubbly, Tim.
You know, it just occurred to me, the intro, we say like whenever it's most convenient for you to listen to the bonfire, but like we have to give a shout out to the people who are listening to us even when it's not convenient for them.
Yes.
You know, we're proud of you. We thank you very much for soldiering on with us at a time that is not working out for you.
Yes. And also, special shout out to, if I remember correctly, Melissa, who, as I was walking to Soldier Field to Gate 0 to walk in, she's like, "Wait a minute, aren't you Alan?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I listened to your podcast." So shout out to Melissa for listening to us, and shout out to anyone who also listens to us. And also, like I mentioned, I've mentioned this in past episodes. I go to the games, Tim goes to the games, DJ lives in Florida, so not as much games, but you see any one of us or anyone from Men in Red, don't be afraid to come up and say hi. We always love that, honestly. So thank you for your support.
Agreed and seconded. And I think that DJ would third that. We really appreciate all who listen to us.
Yes. So
Indeed.
Let's just talk a little bit of news. Not too big news, but some news. But prior to the game, we had two players out on international duty. We had Koutsias for Greece's under-21 teams, who actually scored against the Faroe Islands with Greece's under-21s last Tuesday. So good on him. Ariel Lassiter, featured for about 72 minutes in a 0-0 draw against Guatemala on Monday in the Nations League. Also, the Fire are up for some hardware. The Fire can win some hardware. How? Because the Return to Red video has been nominated for an Emmy, commercial Emmy. So good luck to the production team, and hopefully we can get that Emmy. Because I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the club has more Emmys and awards than Chicago Fire, the TV show, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yep, they 100% do, and it's the best thing.
Yes, I remember. I think it was also an Emmy, I think. I can't remember what specifically for, but the Fire have got one for I think it was also for either like the broadcast or like the media team, which we've always
it's a great content team that have been doing phenomenal work. Yeah.
Amen. I say to that. So keep doing that content, honestly. The Return to Red video is incredible, honestly. And it was pretty much everything we wanted it to be. Like it actually being a return to red of the red that the Fire have won prior to the switch up in 2020. So yeah. The other two sorts of pieces of news. One, the Fire have traded a 2024 international spot for about 50K GAM for next year. So they traded a spot this year for next year GAM, about 50,000, and they traded it for with Real Salt Lake. So a little bit of sort of behind the scenes business going on, a little bit of extra money.
A true MLS, like for the sickos kind of trade, right?
A true MLS sicko trade, yes.
And I've been told that it's probably because RSL. I thought they might be trying to sign a free agent. They did not. I've been told that it's Noel Caliscan, who they would like to be able to call up more, but the international spot would be a necessary part of doing that, from the Real Monarchs, their MLS Next Pro team, who played for the Timbers and Timbers 2 last year. So good for Noel, good for RSL. And don't spend that 50K in gammon in one place, guys.
truly. You could put it on a down payment for a house, I guess.
And it pretty much is basically just here, we'll help you for this, and then that's done. After the end of this year, nothing matters with it.
So the
Truly
last
MLS trade.
literally, Fire know a lot about those. So, last but not least, former Fire striker Jhon Durán. He's been getting a lot of hype recently in the Premier League, especially for scoring 3 out of Villa's last 4 games, and his last goal was an absolute screamer that had the Aston Villa goalkeeper literally just hands on head, just in awe. And I love some of the comments on social media, including myself. I was quick to comment about it, that he is a Chicago Fire legend, I guess. And some people were like, yeah. And some people questioned, like, this guy came from MLS? Like, they were surprised. Normally MLS for the past few years has always been a league that older or aging players, aging stars, you could say, or just American players go to. No, this is a kid that we waited a year before he even played for us when they announced his signing, and all of a sudden, if he moves on, the Fire's sell-on clause is gonna hit.
And in true Jhon Durán style, he has clearly and publicly been angling for a move. It looks like to Chelsea, possibly West Ham, possibly. It looks like West Ham is the most recent candidate. And it's just hilarious how it seems like wherever he is, he's not happy to be there.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to start somewhere, and I guess if you want to start in North America, you can start in MLS. If you're starting in the Prem, you can start in Aston Villa, which is honestly a great place to start in terms of like the Premier League. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a team that has real, aspirations of finishing in a spot that will get them a European spot next season. Like it's not. We're not talking about a team that's getting relegated here.
Yeah, we're not talking about a relegation team, but yeah, all the hype, all the glory and power to Jhon Durán. Not just so that the Fire can get a decent amount of that sell-on clause, but also just for their career, so we can keep hearing the name Jhon Durán across the Premier League and the world of football. So I think we're ready to talk about the game. We're finally happy to talk about the game. I think one other person that sort of came up to me in the tailgate prior to the game, they're like, with the recent results, you guys are always like, do we want to talk about the game? No. Do we want to preview the next game? It's sort of that kind of vibe. But this time we can say that we're looking forward to reviewing this game because it was a Fire victory. Victory at home, 3 points at home. And honestly, it was a decent game.
I think it was overall a relatively fun game to watch, which like Red Bulls football doesn't always lead itself to. But I mean, there was some good end-to-end action. There were some periods where it wasn't, phenomenal highlight level football, but good end-to-end action, plenty of shots on both sides. Red Bulls only managed 2 shots on target. Fire managed 5. And it seemed like for stretches, the Red Bulls were closer to getting the next goal. For stretches, it looked like the Fire were the only team that got a next goal. So, hey, that secured the win.
Yet again, the Fire over the last season and a half have turned around the 75th minute curse too.
Yeah, that is true.
They really haven't been blowing leads this year. So part of that is that they haven't been getting leads, which is an important component part of being able to blow a lead. By my count,
a minor caveat.
Yeah. By my count, they've had 13 leads this season across 10 games. And the only time that they've held a lead and not gotten at least a draw out of it was that match against Seattle. So altogether, it's been, draws against Philly and the Revs. And I believe every other time that the Fire have had a lead, they've ended up getting a win.
Yeah. So just to first start off in terms of points of interest, we had several changes to the lineup due to injuries that happened not during games. essentially, one injury happened during warm-up, and that happened to Rafa Shihos. He was taken out before the opening whistle, while Omsberg ended up coming in. Also, Brian Gutierrez, Andrew Gutman had injuries or are coming back sort of from injuries. So they were also unavailable. So the team looked fairly different, honestly, which included the start of Tom Barlow in the starting 11 ahead of Koutsias.
A very controversial move on Klopas's part.
I think that part of it has to be that, that Georgios Koutsias played midweek against the Faroe Islands, played a fairly long stretch. So had to get back from the Faroe Islands. And I don't legitimately, most places in the world, I think I could tell you around what the flights would be like to get to Chicago from there. Faroe Islands, no clue.
No, aren't the Faroe Islands kind of above Scotland in that region? If
They're
I were to
between Scotland and Iceland, I think they're about 1,000 miles southwest or the southeast of Iceland.
So, yeah.
So yeah, do you fly to Iceland and then Iceland to Chicago? That doesn't seem crazy, but also not fun. So
yep.
Oh, I looked it up. All the flights are connecting flights with horrible, absolutely horrible
layover
connection times. Yeah, because they're oh, you're traveling from here in Scandinavia to elsewhere in Europe for sure, but no, you're not. Koutsias was traveling to North America, so it takes 30 hours. So good on him, but I get why you wouldn't want to start a guy that had just played at midweek and then spent 30 hours trying to get back home.
Yeah. So, as we mentioned, the Fire did make the best of, I guess, what they had in terms of their lineup and also the way that New York Red Bulls do play. It took 30 minutes until something, I guess, happened goal-wise when a pass from Arno Suke went back to Carlos Terán. Carlos Terán just lobs it inside our own box, flies over. One of the Red Bull defenders sort of tries to head it. I'm guessing they wanted to head it back to their goalkeeper. That didn't exactly work as Hugo Kuipers got on the end of it. He takes the shot on goal, to which Carlos Coronel makes the shot or makes the save. Unfortunately, doesn't get his hands completely on it. So Tom Barlow is there for probably the easiest tap in goal this season, I think.
Yeah, and one really good job from Kuipers getting on that as quickly as he did. And the reason that Coronel didn't get more of it, he wasn't able to corral the ball, was because it was it was an impressive save from Carlos Coronel. He stretched out on the ground, he got an arm on it, a lot of the time that ball goes in. So good on him for stopping that initial ball. But after that, you just can't, you're not going to be able to corral the rebound.
No, it was a strong left-footed shot from Hugo Kuipers.
Yeah, and speaking of left foot, that wasn't Tom Barlow's first real opportunity in that match. He had a shot on goal a few minutes before that was also off of his left foot and went high and wide, but it really didn't miss by that much. He just got a little bit more on it than I think that he wanted to. And he looked goal dangerous against his former team. Tom
Barlow, especially in this game, was... someone said, I think in the supporter session, king of the press. He was up forward most of the time. So whenever Red Bull would try to sort of play from the back, play from their goalkeeper, Tom Barlow was there to sort of press them on, apply pressure. So good on him.
And then the last thing about Barlow is that in the locker room after the game, Chris Brady actually stopped and made sure he wanted to say this. This wasn't in response to a question. This was Brady wanting to say something to us. He said, "Big props to Tom Barlow. I want to commend him because although he may not always be the first choice, he's always putting himself in the best situations, metaphorically and literally tonight with his work rate. So throughout games, the guy is running through a brick wall for us, for our team. And I wanted to really shout thank you to him. It gets me fired up. It gets me going. And I hope it gets the other guys. I hope that's how the other guys feel. But I respect the type of player that he is." So,
yeah.
That's, one, really kind words from Brady, and I think says a lot about his leadership growing, and he's still a young guy. And I think it also says a lot about what Barlow is doing in training and what he's doing with the team that we don't really get a chance to see.
Yeah. I mean, when there was the meet the players event going on, I think Tom Barlow and Chris Brady sat next to each other, so they were definitely like, I guess they were able to have conversations, and they both of them are very nice people, and especially Tom Barlow. When I went up for them to sign my flag, I started singing, "He's here, he's there, he's every effing where, Barlow," sort of taking on from Ted Lasso. Chris Brady really liked it. So after Barlow scored that goal, some of us started singing it, and it was really fun. Also, if you can hear, my voice is very tired because that game really set me in a great righteous mood.
Which is great because you don't need your voice for anything on Sunday mornings.
Oh, I know. I had a fun time for my Sunday morning gigs. Yes.
By the way, one other thing about Tom Barlow that I think that Joe Chats is trying to get the word out about. Barlow has recommended as a snack pretzels, like normal, like pretzel sticks, pretzel rods, like, the not soft pretzels, and mustard as a good snack. So I don't know.
Interesting. I feel like that works. I feel like that works.
Yeah.
Why not?
He swears by it. So
all right. So he swore by it. So first half, we score our goal. That's pretty good. Immediately coming into the second half, not so good. Red Bull essentially go right onto the attack. They were able to move the ball forward through Daniel Elman, through the midfield right to the right side onto Dante Van Zier, move it right to the middle to Dennis. How do you pronounce his last name? I keep forgetting.
Yengar.
I think it's Yengar.
I saw that in the lineup, and I'm like, I really hope I don't have to say that. I hope he doesn't get played, because then I don't have to say that name ever.
Van Zier crossed it to the ghost poison type Pokemon.
Yes. So he immediately, both substitutes, both second half, like first thing of the second half, both of those substitutes of Dante Van Zier and Dennis Yengar made an immediate impact with both the cross to the box. The sort of tap that Gengar had, I guess, sort of mistook Brady. It went underneath him. And this was also a point where Carlos Terán was, he was just caught asleep, honestly, when Dante Van Zier just went right past him to the right side of the box to make the cross.
So I thought that too at first, because Terán was doing a good job keeping up with Van Zier. And then all of a sudden, it's like Van Zier had acres of space on that side on the right side of the pitch, from his perspective, would be Brady's left, to try to get the cross off. And watching it again slowly on the replay, you can see Carlos Terán grabbing what looks like the sort of like his like hip area, right as he stops being able to keep up with Van Zier.
Yeah.
And just a few minutes later, Terán goes down on the pitch in without contact. And is unable to continue. So that forces the Fire to lose another center back after already losing Rafa Chihos in warmups. And so it seemed like that's when the injury happened. And again, like non-contact injury, it wasn't Van Zier doing it in this case, but I think that's what led to the goal, was the fact that Terán was physically not able to keep up at the pace that he wanted to be.
Yeah. Which led to the substitution of Tobias Otorbius. I always keep forgetting. How do we pronounce his first name?
Toby. He goes by Toby. But
all right, by Toby Solquest, which led to Toby Solquest coming into the game, which kind of surprised me that he, I guess, didn't get the nod to when Chihos got injured. Instead, it was Wyatt Omsberg came in. Normally, I feel like Omsberg would be... I think I said Womsberg. He's sort of like the second half or injury substitute, but, good on him for getting the star, I guess.
I mean, Salquist, unfortunately, has had rotten luck, both in terms of injuries this season that I think has kept him from being able to get into a groove. And also just, I mean, stuff like the own goal like that. I don't think he was in a wrong position for it. Like there's times that players make own goals happen, and there's times that own goals happen to them, and that felt like the latter to me. But I think that may have factored in the decision. The other thing to note, partly because the Fire had a number of defensive options on the bench, but Mauricio Pineda was not in the lineup at all. And it seems like he wasn't listed on the injury report. He was coming back from injury, so maybe it was precautionary, wanting to have more time, and
maybe he was still feeling a bit of pain.
Yeah, well, right. Or if not a bit of pain, like why risk him and get and put someone else in when you had like Fede Navarro that can play the midfield thing, like the midfield part of his game off the bench, and you had Wyatt Like the plan was to have Wyatt Omsberg and Toby Salquist on the bench with Rafa Chihos starting. Yes. Obviously, it didn't work out that way, and but
the injury bug strikes again in several different places.
Ironic because it looked like the Fire were about to have an almost entirely healthy and available lineup. The only person on the injury report was Chase Gasper. And then look at it, we end up losing Guti, Tehran, Chihos, Gutman, all to different, precautionary to something that happens in the game. That's a wild going from what we expected Friday when the injury report came out to game time Saturday. Wild swing.
Yeah. So few things happened after those moments. We had a shot on goal from Chris Mueller right on the edge of the box, which was saved by Cornell. So it was a really good shot from there. Also, we had a sweeper keeper moment from Chris Brady in like the 56th minute, which was, in my opinion, pretty cool. And then a few more chances going back and forth. One in the 67th minute where Brady had a diving save. So it was
the 57th minute. Is that the one where Lassiter earned the yellow? Is that what you're thinking of?
I think so. I think that's that one.
So that was, I think, a very professional yellow. I guess I'll call it that. From Ari Lassiter, where he just shoves, I forget who the Red Bull player was. It may have been Van Zier in that position. Basically shoves him to the ground outside of the box when he was more or less alone on Chris Brady, with Brady out of it, like well off his line and really, I think, out of the box by that point. And I think that it was Brady being smart about it that kept it from being dog-so, because Brady leaps up at the last minute to try to make a move for the ball. And I think it was just enough to keep it as a yellow for Lassiter rather than a denial of goal scoring opportunity. Yeah. And that would have radically changed the game probably.
Yeah. As I mentioned before, Chris Mueller, he had a chance both with a shot that was saved. He also had like a diving header from a little chip from Kuipers, who was trying to set it up, but it went just wide. There was also like a Kuiper shot that also went like hit the side of the netting. So the Fire definitely were trying for something. Around the 72nd minute is when Tom Barlow bowed out to our other striker, Georgios Koutsias. And as mentioned, Chris Mueller came off for Kellen Acosta. Both players, I think, well, Tom Barlow especially, since he had the goal, he had his chances. Chris Mueller also had his chances. I think he's just having a streak of sort of bad luck in terms of actually getting on the score sheet as well, essentially.
Yeah, I thought it was a fairly solid game from Chris Mueller. Like, we haven't seen a ton from him since, this season, really, since coming back from that injury that kept him out last year. He doesn't look like the same player as he did before, if we're being brutally honest about it. He doesn't have that burst of speed that he used to have, and I think that he still has skills that I think that can make him a valuable contributor, but it's about, just like anything else when you're like changed after an injury, where like you've got to learn how to bring those skills to the forefront without having some of the tools that you had before. And I think that that's what's going on with Mueller, and hopefully he continues to progress. He's under contract for a long time with the team.
Amen. I say to that. So come in Kellen Acosta and Georgios Koutsias. Koutsias is immediately making an impact. He had a shot that was a really, first of all, it's from a really wide angle. from the left side of the box that forced a save from Cornell. So good on him, first of all, for taking a shot, I guess, from that angle, which ended up forcing
phenomenal
the corner.
work. Just like he made his own space and time to get that off too. It was really good work. Like he like pulled defenders towards him to create space for others, then moved in and made his own space. It was a really good job, I think, from Koutsias.
Yep. So, which ended up forcing the corner. So Marin Haile Selassie takes the corner. Like it kind of what sort of happens usually when Fire has the corner. Red Bull player sort of boots it away, but it goes back to the feet of Marin Haile Selassie. He pushes it back to Kalna Acosta, who immediately makes the cross. There is a running Koutsias who heads the ball down and makes a nice bounce past Cornell into the back of net. 2-1 Fire. The tucked in Greek gets another goal for the Fire.
4 goals in 5 games across all competitions for the Fire, plus the goal for the Faroe Islands in one of the 2 games they had, U21 Euro qualification. So yeah, man, like he's scoring, and like it's sort of funny, something that I didn't think about until the Fire posted. They have their like goal scorer. They've got like a little, sort of like GIF length thing that they post on socials where like the players like cheering. It looks like a kind of a, I don't know, trading card sort of vibe. But yeah,
I'm looking at him right now, and the Barlow one's really funny because he's just sort of moving his arms and his hips. I'm like, that one's funny.
Barlow was like, yeah, like I'm sorry, I'm a white dude from St. Louis, like I'm not comfortable with this idea. You're asking me to dance, and there is no music, and there's no one else dancing. Like this is not good.
Koutsias is all great because he does like a usual like with his arms out, and then he does a little shush and then a wink and a kiss. So wow, it's
But the thing that really struck me was just like, you look at Koutsias, the way that he looked, yesterday when we were seeing, like when he talked to him in the locker room, and the Koutsias in that video that was recorded, at the beginning of the season. And he looks so much older now. Like he is still such a young player. He's 20 years old. So there are U22 players that are now 24 and 25 years old. And that is a very different stage of your career than what Koutsias is at.
Yes.
And so hopefully what we're seeing is not just a run of good form or some luck, but the start of the emergence of Koutsias and the kind of player he can be.
Yes, sir. And that's pretty much, I guess, all she wrote at the very end, apart from, I think Marin Haile Selassie ended up getting a yellow card for some argument in the 87th minute.
Why you got to upgrade the card on him, man?
It's men in red, and I see red. As well as Dante Van Zier. He ended up getting a yellow in the last minute as well. And they Red Bulls had a last minute corner as well, where Cornell even went up as the goalkeeper to assist with that, but it was blown wide, and that's how the game finished. 2-1 for the Fire.
10 minutes of stoppage time. It was kind of a nervy 10 minutes of stoppage time too.
It kind of was.
And the 10 minutes seemed, I mean, because we had 1 minute in the first half, and, I realized there were injuries and stuff like that happened in the second half, but I don't know, 9 minutes that became 10 felt like a lot, all things considered. But hey, here's the thing. Corey Burke, who has been a certified Fire killer, he had 8 goals in 10 matches against the Fire going into the match, was silenced again. So basically what happened is Georgios Koutsias worked his way into the Fire squad and started scoring goals against the Red Bulls. This was his second match winner in his MLS career, and his second match winner against the Red Bulls, and silenced Corey Burke. So Koutsias is better than Burke. We now have a Red Bull killer, and DJ, you look this up. Frank Klopas is himself a Red Bull killer. At least as a coach.
Yes, he is. Yeah, so this is now Frank Klopas' 6th win against the Red Bulls, alongside 3 draws and a single loss, which was, I want to say, a 1-0 loss a few years ago. But yeah, so whenever Klopas actually goes against the Red Bulls, apparently he takes that personally.
I think I remember seeing a tweet from you, DJ, that was like, wake up, Frank Klopas. There's a game. I sleep. It's against the Red Bulls. It's
the like
Real
nuclear
shit.
red eyes. Yeah.
the red-eyed Shaq. Yeah.
So yeah, it's maybe he's like, you still should be called the Metro Stars.
I actually am curious too about the statistic. I feel like Frank Klopas might be the only person to have played against to have either played against or coached against every team that's been in the MLS.
Interesting.
He's
I'm wondering about that statistic.
No, that's not true because he never did against LAFC.
Yes, that's true.
Oh,
At the very least, and I don't know why LAFC never plays the Fire. What is MLS afraid of? What is Don Garber afraid of?
we've played them once at LAFC.
Yes, once.
The game where
never
Stephen
since.
Cleveland decided to stand on his head.
All right. So, the current standings, the Fire are 13th in the Eastern Conference, though Nashville and New England are below them with games in hand. Nashville has 1 game in hand. New England has 2 games in hand. Speaking of Nashville, that is our next opponent, but we play them on a Wednesday.
I just love that as soon like DJ mentioned Stephen Cleveland and Alan's like, we're moving on. That's it. You guys are out of control.
No, I just, segues are hard. So, as I mentioned, Nashville, it is a midweek game, which I feel like at this point of the season, it's weird to have a midweek game. I feel like most midweek games happen just during sort of like the middle, and by the end of the season, they're all on Saturdays. So,
I mean, compressed schedules though, right? Like the Miami game last year was on a Wednesday. The Fire have one more midweek game against Charlotte before the end of the year. Like it's
true.
It's what it is.
It is what it is. So we have a midweek game in Nashville. Nashville right now, they're in a bit of a slump since hiring BJ Callahan as their head coach. Their record is 1-8-1. So they have 1 draw, which happened against
1 win.
One win, which was actually their most recent game, I'm pretty sure, against Atlanta. Yes, it was a 2-0 win.
Happened yesterday as we're recording. Yeah, their first win since announcing that he would be head coach on July 3rd. He didn't actually take over for a couple of weeks, so I'm not sure that you can really pin the results on him at that point. But if they were hoping like new manager would fix everything, it hasn't been the case.
Yeah, and that one, we also mentioned 8-1. So he had 8 losses, including, I think, a loss in Leagues Cup. And the 1 draw is actually also from Leagues Cup, but as women, those games
and loss in PKs if you want to get technical about it. Yeah. So
yay. The most notable player that we always mention whenever we face Nashville is Hani Mukhtar, but he's been sort of on the decline as of late. In 2021, he had 19 goals, 10 assists in 33 games. 2022, he had 23 goals, 7 assists in 34 games. In 23, he had 15 goals and 9 assists in 36 games. Right now, this season, with 26 games, he only has 6 goals and 5 assists. So he's been on a bit of a slump, I guess.
Not the same Hani Mukhtar, right? And we sort of saw it like it's not the same team really since the Leagues Cup. Last year when they made it to the final, they lost out in the final to Inter Miami. And it's just like if you look at their record, like you can more or less put a pin on it. Like they had started to fade in MLS before the Leagues Cup, and I think a lot of people were thinking, all right, like this tournament is going to be huge for them. Like they're going to be back, and the Nashville that we, Fire fans saw every time the team went to Nashville. I believe the team has scored a single goal in Nashville, Tennessee. If I'm not mistaken.
I want to look this up. Hold up.
Nacho Aliseda, I believe, is the only Fire player to score in Nashville.
Yes, he is.
I think, hold on.
Which says something about how long it's been, because
in October of 2020, Boris Sekulic scored in a 1-1 draw. And then in 21, when it was that nightmare 5-1 game, that was Nacho Aliseda. So the Fire have 2 goals in Nashville, while Nashville has 9 against us. So not really good.
But
Good
again,
goals.
it's a very different team, right? Like
It
they
is a
came
very
in the
different
league.
team.
They were a playoff team then. Hani Mukhtar was the Golden Boot winner 1 year, and like
wasn't he MLS MVP as well at one point? Or am I
Yes.
mistaken?
Yes. Yeah. Same season, right? Like,
Yep.
and so basically the TLDR on this is that teams get rid of Dax McCarty at their own peril.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, that sounds like a good, pretty true statement to me.
Unfortunately, he said he's retiring. This will be his last season, but I mean, whatever he's doing next, like if it's coaching, if it's something else, just don't fire Dax McCarty if you want success in the league.
Truly. So the Fire are, when it comes to head, it's all even. 2 Nashville wins, 2 draws, 2 Fire wins, so it is even. And we do face them one more time in October for MLS Decision Day, last game of the season at home at Soldier Field. So yeah, few injuries and a few, I guess, when it comes to the availability, they had I think several players out and questionable. We'll see how many of them are actually going to be back for the Wednesday game, the midweek game. Do we know of any of these players that are going to be back?
I wouldn't expect it to really be that different of a lineup. I also don't really know that it matters. I mean, it just seems like Nashville's problems are deeper than any of the individual members of the squad, and I don't think that they are really that big of difference makers. Like the Red Bulls, basically, the Red Bulls have 1 win since Emil Forsberg was injured, right? And that, he's been a huge part of their team. Like that's not what's going on in Nashville. I think the problems to that are significantly deeper. Like it's getting close to burn it all down and start over territory in Nashville, and they have never had to do that. That's hard to do in MLS, as Fire fans can well attest to.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think it'll be interesting to see what comes from this. Like there is still a chance, like it is still a team that has Hani Mukhtar has 2 hat tricks against the Fire already, right? Like how many players in MLS history have 2 hat tricks against the same team? It's not a lot. And so maybe this is a game that something awakens in him and he's able to sort of reverse the decline.
I would like the Fire not to be that team, because I feel like we're always that team that when we go against a team that's struggling, they somehow manage to pick themselves up against that in that game. Cough, cough, San Jose. Yeah. So, but when you look at,
but it's go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, the only thing I was going to say is if you look sort of at team comparisons, the Fire lead in terms of goals scored, assists, goals per game, shots on target per game, big chances per game. The Fire lead on all of that. The only thing that Nashville has a bit better is that they have a few more clean sheets than we do. But other than that, the Fire on paper, I guess, look like the better team this season than Nashville.
Yeah, and they're ahead. I mean, they're tied in the standings on points, and Nashville has a game in hand. But early on, Nashville looked like a team that could maybe get it together, and then the wheels have just kind of fallen off for them. It's sort of odd in that they're a team that fired their coach after a win, which you don't typically get, but they decided it was time. Announced BJ Callahan a few weeks later, so that could have been part of the decision. But yeah, I mean, if the Fire want a chance at making the postseason, they need to get 6 points in the 2 matches against Nashville. It's that simple. The door is not quite closed for either of these 2 teams, but they both can't go in. Yeah, I mean, I would get the Fire something a little bit less than a 10% chance of making the postseason at this point.
This is the Fire are currently running down the stairs towards the red line as the announcement is going bing bong, doors are closing, essentially. That's essentially where we're at. And the Fire are running towards that closing door.
Well, hopefully running, right? They're moving towards it. It's yeah.
So it's only 4 we're only 4 points out of the playoff spot. And of course, it still depends on the teams above us, I guess. how easy or how difficult it will be. With these wins, the Fire, they have how many games left? They have 5 games left in the season. So, what is our prediction for the game in Nashville, in the Music City?
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I get a feeling this is going to be a 1-1 draw.
Interesting. You want to elaborate sort of why that vibe?
Just midweek games. The Fire tend to not do well with midweek unless it's against Miami for some reason.
All right. Tim, do you have a prediction for us?
I'm going to say 2-1. It feels like I hear what you're saying, DJ, and that makes sense. I just feel like somebody's going to be able to bang in a second goal. I'm not going to say 2-1 for which team. My gut would say the Fire probably have a better chance, but watching the game since BJ Callahan actually took over, like Nashville is looking better. They just haven't had it together to get goals.
I think part of the problem too is kind of the problem the Fire have had historically with for Callahan, it's like he has to get that team together, and it's not really his team right now. So that is definitely something to keep in mind.
So I would go ahead and say, I want to say 2-1 Fire. I'm just hoping that our players that were scratched for the last game are able to come back. That hopefully Chihos, Tehran, Guti, those players, they just had minor things and that they might be able to come back, either start or even just as substitutes. But I'm the optimist, I guess. I want to say 2-1 Fire. I want to say that this might be the Fire's best chance to get, I guess, one more away win. I want to say, because I don't know what the chances are of them getting a away win at Montreal or at Charlotte. So
Montreal is also another team that's been a tire fire, and so we'll talk about them. Just update about this. We'll talk about them next after the game. We're going to try to get that out as quickly as we can after the game. But it seemed like the Fire last year. The Fire had a win against the Red Bulls and a midweek win after that was the one at home against Inter Miami, and then it looked like they had a good chance at making the playoffs.
And then the game against Charlotte happened.
Yeah, but I mean they could be in that same spot again if they have a win midweek, and certainly would very much be in the playoff conversation if they get wins against both teams that they're facing on the road this week. Like that's the thing. And like they're both also teams that are not in the playoffs right now, that frankly Hani Mukhtar has not looked like the same guy that we've seen in previous seasons. And outside of that, they really don't have high-end talent. I think the Fire are the more talented team. And CF Montreal, I mean, are basically devoid of high-end talent at this point. So, I mean, they're both winnable games for the Fire.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth mentioning, too, after this game, the Fire could end the game either 1 point out of the playoff spots or 5 points. It's like a win definitely gets them really close there.
Yeah, and of course, like it depends on the teams around them and stuff like that. They do not control their own destiny. The chances are remote, but crazier things have happened. The team just needs to do something they haven't done this season, which is beat teams that are beatable, right? Like how many times have they faced the team that is in the last position in the league, like the Revs, the Earthquakes, and they managed to somehow find a way to avoid getting 3 points? They need to that needs to stop now.
It's a mentality thing. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen and they-thems of the Fire, thank you for listening to this episode of The Bonfire. As Tim mentioned, since there is a midweek game, we'll provide like a little update episode. So it'll be a shorter episode, just quickly recapping the game and previewing the Montreal game afterwards. We're going to hopefully get that as soon as possible when that game ends. If you haven't already, why are you just so late? Why are you not following MIR 97 Pods or MIR 97 on Twitter? Because I refuse to call it X. There's also Men in Red 97 on Instagram, as well as meninred97.com to find all the articles surrounding the Fire, be it match analysis, interviews, pre-match stuff that Tim also writes. So go give it a read. Anything else to say before we leave our audience, gentlemen?
Tacos.
That's true. Go get your tacos.
Happy Independence Day to anyone with Mexican connections here.
Yes, happy Independence Day. When I was coming home from the game, it was going great. People were going crazy. So, yeah, happy Independence Day. And from now until forever, come on, you men in red.